This week I learned sometimes there can be a little too much food in football. But it was not this year. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another weekly update. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving weekend if you celebrate. If you didn't, hey, I hope you enjoyed some nice time off with the family and got lots of fun things in as that recharge. We head into the core of Christmas time here very, very soon. I think it's very, very hectic for a lot of people, whether they celebrate or not. But here today, guys, we're going to do like usual. We're going to talk about what all happened this week, what should happen next week, what is leading up to things happening this week, and all of the above and in between. Let's begin like usual, guys. So about what am I reading? I did finish Empire of the Dawn by Jay Kristoff. I was reading the last parts on my Kindle there, so never took my bookmark out. This, guys, I liked it a lot. There are going to be some hangups about this, and honestly, I'm still processing some things in this. I look at the series as a whole, and I like what Jay did was magnificent. It was an incredible return to form for me when it comes to vampires, which I said I feel like this genre kind of got hijacked away a few years back, and I think we all know what I'm talking about. In the end, if you love those books, guys, that's awesome, because like Jay and I talked about when we had our discussion in Dallas, was that, you know, a lot of people that were in that audience, they cut their teeth on that vampire series, and it led them to something like this. But for me, it was fun to get vampires back to feeling special, back to feeling scary, back to feeling awesome again, and not just, you know, trying to date high school girls. With this, I think he achieved all those things. Now, look, in the end, Jay's writing, it's either for you or it's not. If you think his writing is too edgy, this isn't going to be the book that changes your mind. It is still very much the same as it was with the first two. With this is, God, how do I do this without saying spoilers? The ending is going to sway you one way or the other. And it's not because it doesn't go the way you want. It's there's a certain plot device that happens that I kind of was gearing up for, but I didn't want to believe it. And when it did happen, I kind of groaned out loud a little bit. Now, look, I love Jay like a brother, and I think he would be insulted if I just stood up here and said, hey, it's amazing, I loved everything about it. I am still kind of processing, because I feel like what he did with the ending kind of ruined some things for me that I liked in books 2 and 3, and that's very, very frustrating when you read a series this long and a series you love this much. So it's one of those things where I'm like, gosh, it almost feels like I'm talking about Stephen King's It, and it's like, besides that one part, I think it might be one of the greatest books I've ever read, you know? With this is not one of the best series I've ever read, but it was going to surpass Nevernight for me until that ending. And I'm like, no, I still think that I lean Nevernight in regards to his best series. Not that you got to compare these two series, but for me with this is, look, I love everything about the characters. The character work is great. My biggest criticism of this, besides the ending, is that we spent a little too much time with Gabe off the page. And I don't like that, because obviously Gabe's the one who brought me to the dance. I want to spend the time with Gabe. With this one is like, look, I liked getting the background for some of those other characters. That was great. What I didn't like was telling us one thing and then showing us another. And I know that's going to happen when you have two possibly unreliable narrators in a book. That's going to happen. And you guys know how I feel about unreliable narrator. I'm not nuts about it. I am not nuts about it, because it just feels like a get out of jail free card. I can write anything I want and then say, oh, but it didn't actually happen that way. You got to be very, very good. And I'm not saying that Jay isn't good with it. That's more of my problems with using unreliable narrator. It can really, really screw up a lot of things that you enjoy along the way. And that's kind of how I feel about this, is that I feel like book 1 still is like untouchable for me. I love it to death. Book 2, I think this book made book 2 better in hindsight. I liked a lot more about it. And with this one, it feels like it is coming in third for me. Now, that's just because, you know, something has to come in third. When you talk about a trilogy, one book has to finish third. When you're talking about ranking a trilogy, obviously, that's just math. It's undefeated. But, yeah, the ending really swayed me. Without that ending, if it just had a straightforward kind of ending that I could have more easily wrapped my head around, I might be ranking it a little different, because I feel like some of the big moments in here are better than Empire of the Damned. Yeah, this one is going to take some time. I think I'm going to have to take some time with this one before I can really give a final ranking of the series. But right now it feels like 1, 2, 3 for me. And again, great book. It is really, really a great book. It was a thrilling ride. It meandered a little bit in some places, but again, it makes sense when you get to the end why he does that. It makes some sense. But I don't know. It was a decision that I would have made. But again, I think Jay, obviously, he's earned the right to do whatever he wants. He's a big-time author now. And he's got an incredible legion of fans. And a lot of them seem to really like how the ending did go. But I do think it's going to sway you one way or the other. It's going to be a little bit divisive, even if it seems like most are leaning towards loving it. There are some like myself that are like, man, that feels like that takes a lot of wind out of the sails for the series. So we're interested to hear what you guys think. I won't be doing a full review of this one because I don't review series sequel books, because it's like, why would I review a book 3? Because it just feels like, hey, if you haven't read book 1 or 2, what do you care if book 3 is good or not? But I might review the series as a whole one day, because it is a series I still very much recommend, but it might be one of those that, like, how the ending does go might swing you one way or the other and feeling like it was worth the journey or not. I don't know. Like I said, I might be on the unpopular opinion on that end, but I know I'm not alone, because I have talked to some other people who have finished it, and they have similar issues, whereas they feel like it's not just because of the way that the ending went, it's because it changes other things about the story that we really did enjoy. And I'll leave that up to your interpretation here. But I did also finish The Elementals. It was a nice palate cleanser that I needed after I finished 3 massive books in a row. I got a lot of people who were like, what happened to Shadows Upon Time? We'll talk about that here in a second. With this was also one of my November reads, and I needed something this short after reading King's Sorrow, Strength of the Few, and Empire of the Dawn, all back to back to back. 3 monstrous books. I needed something a little short, and this did the trick. What I'll say about this is, actually, I wish it was longer. With this, it's like, if I had read this before Blackwater, I probably would have liked it a lot more. Reading it after Blackwater, I'm like, it just feels rushed, because what I loved about Blackwater is not just that it was massive, but it took its time to develop this family over decades of time, whereas this does it really quick. So this almost feels kind of something like the blueprint, I guess you would say, for Blackwater. I'm not even sure if this came out before or after Blackwater. But it's hard for me not to compare it to Blackwater when that's one of the greatest books I've read since I started this channel. It was just phenomenal. I love the pacing. I love the way that he really made me feel like I got to know generations of that family. This isn't as epic in scope, so obviously it's kind of mean to compare them, I do think, but it'd be hard for me to say I wasn't comparing it to Blackwater. But with this, I enjoyed the story a lot. No one is nailing Southern Gothic like this guy. Maybe Robert McCammon comes close, but this guy is just everything to me when it comes to that. And I will read more from Michael McDowell, so it's like, it was very, very good. But again, it's my own fault, I think, for going into it being like, look, I love Blackwater. I want some more. Please, sir, may I have another? And it's not. It's not that. It's not as good as Blackwater, but I don't think that should bring the rating for this book down. I did have that feeling of, just when it was really getting going, it feels like we just kind of rush to the end. And I hate that, because I think if McDowell had really, really taken time, made this like a 400 or 500 page book, I think it could have been really, really special. But again, all of the things that are needed to make good Southern Gothic and a Michael McDowell novel, they're there. They are there. But again, if you go into it like you shouldn't, like I did, comparing it to Blackwater, maybe his best book, I don't know, I've only read 2 of them so far, then that might bring it down a little bit. It's like going into the sequel, Lonesome Dove, wanting Lonesome Dove. It's hard. It's hard when you go into it to not make those comparisons. When you have a really, really great first read with an author, it's hard not to look backwards and say, I want that feeling again. And that might have been my fault on that one, but it was a really enjoyable read, and it's a definite recommend. But I think maybe I was suffering a little bit from a book hangover as well, with how I struggled with the end of Empire of the Dawn. Maybe that might have affected me a little bit. But Michael McDowell, absolutely brilliant, and I will be reading more of him maybe next year. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'm taking all of the Michael McDowell recommendations. Guys, I got to the Elementals after how much I liked Blackwater, and so many people recommended this one. So maybe if you can make a recommendation for one that's a little longer and does those things I talked about, where he takes his time to really develop and make me fall in love with this family, I think that would be something I'd be looking forward to in the future. How about what am I going to read, guys? I did start the ℙ𝕦𝕤𝕤𝕤 read, which is The Last Coyote. But you say coyote or coyote? Coyote? My wife says coyote, and I just laugh every time. So coyote, however you say it. This is a Harry Bosch book. If you watch my TBR video I did earlier this week, I talked about why we chose to start where we are. I am loving this. The first quarter of the book I kind of blew through this morning. And that's really, really awesome, because you guys know I'm not crazy about the crime, detective, police drama kind of book. That's not really my style. But the whole point of the ℙ𝕦𝕤𝕤 is to get out of our comfort zone a little bit and read some things we wouldn't usually. And that's why I think Brian picked this. Now, I've watched the Bosch television series on Amazon. Not all the way, but I've watched enough of it to feel like I know this character, and I think that's helped getting into this. But the first quarter, terrific. Guys, I love me some damaged characters, and Harry Bosch is pretty much broke at the beginning of this story. So Some things feel familiar because they've been covered on the television show. Some things feel new, like, in this, he doesn't have the wife and kid like he does in the TV show. It's not, obviously, it's not modernized, so, he's a Vietnam vet. That's different from the TV show. So there's several things I feel like there are differences, but I feel like I know the character a little bit, and I think that helps. But I don't think it would matter, because this is my first Michael Connelly, and I know some of you are going to be like, yes, we know this. This guy's really good. He's really good at writing in this character's head and just really getting into what makes this guy go and the things holding him back. And it's just like, man, he didn't exactly have a sunny disposition on the show, but holy hell is he grumpy in this book. But you think about where his life's at right now. His house is pretty much condemned. His girlfriend just left him. He's on leave or suspension from his job, from striking a superior officer. You think about where you would be in that situation, and he's being forced to see a shrink. It's going to make anyone, I think, a little grumpy. But I love how he's writing this character, and you can go through it and be like, Harry, calm down. But you're putting yourself in his shoes, and you're like, no, I'd probably be reacting similarly, especially if I had the problems with my past that he has. So really, really great start to this character, and I think what a lot of crime detective fans, and especially Michael Connelly fans, have been telling me, they're low maintenance, man. You can go right into them, boom, they're gone. And it's just reading it so quick. Like I said, just sat down for an hour this morning. I'm almost a quarter of the way through the book. That's great. It just flows so easy. And if this guy is this good of a writer this early in the series, I think this would be one that I would revisit again. Now, don't get excited. I'm not going to be saying, hey, next year we're going to be doing one Bosch per month. Definitely not. But I think this continues the way that it has for the beginning here. It's definitely something that I'll continue going with in the future. And that's exciting, because anytime you kind of dip into a new genre a little bit and you get those things, or like I said, you don't have to get into this giant lore of history, because we're on Earth. I know everything about Earth. Well, not everything, but I know a lot about Earth. To say, hey, I don't got to learn a new land, a new kingdom, and all these histories, these monarchies, and all these family dramas and stuff, and I can kind of just dive right in. That's kind of why I read a lot more horror this year than I did in previous years, because I need the standalone, I need the palate cleansers, you need those things between the big, giant, epic fantasy reads. You need something that's a little lower maintenance, I think you'd be. And when I say lower maintenance, I just mean that, look, there's like 3 or 4 main characters, it's something smaller. It doesn't mean that it's brain dead. It just means you don't have to put so much time and homework into a book to really enjoy it. And I think that might be something really, really great there. So I've been talking about, hey, I need to find me like an urban fantasy series. Maybe I just need to find me a cop series. And if it's Harry Bosch, talking about Harry Dresden here in a second. But if Harry Bosch is the reason that I kind of go down that rabbit hole, then I think that's very exciting, not just for myself, but for a lot of viewers who've been pushing me to read more things like Michael Connelly in the future, and I think that might happen. Now, speaking of Harry Dresden, I will be working on that again this week. Like I said, I'm about 130 pages into this one. I did that while we were in North Carolina for Christopher Rocchio's Sun Eater Gala, but I'll be continuing with that this month. And I've got a lot of people I know right now saying, what the hell, man? You had Shadows Upon Time, Christopher Rocchio, on your list for November. Well, look, guys, I knew I was never getting all 3 of those monstrous books, Strength of the Few, Empire of the Dawn, and Shadows Upon Time. I knew I was never getting that done in November. And look, after finishing Dawn, I was like, I can't, if I dive into Sun Eater right now, I'm going to feel overwhelmed. I'm going to feel, because I've always said with Sun Eaters, like, brilliant books, but they take me some time. I have to chew my food a little bit with a Sun Eater book. I don't want to rush it. I don't want to feel like I got to speed run that, because it would just fly completely over my head, because I'm not as smart as you guys. I'm not. When it comes to Sun Eater, I like to take my time with it. So I said, I need something smaller between it. So I wanted to do the Elementals, obviously. I wanted to finish that one because it was short. And I wanted to do Dresden Files here because I said I need something in the Harry Bosch book, because I need something to kind of take the edge off a little bit. We're going to be doing the ℚ𝕦𝕤𝕣𝕠𝕟 here. I don't want those guys waiting on me because I'm still reading a Sun Eater book. So get those out of the way, kind of clear the runway, and get into Shadows Upon Time with nothing on my mind except diving back into the conclusion of that universe. So that is still very much in the plans for December. And right after that, the last Bound of the Broken book, which is the biggest book I'll read this year. But December, it's pretty much spoken for. So I imagine I'll be blowing through the Michael Connelly book and Dresden Files probably sometime this week. And then I can kind of clear the rest of December all the way for Ryan and Christopher. And that will be very, very exciting times, I do think, as we do close down the year. But I am going to be getting to Shadows Upon Time. I'm not shelving it like I did. I know I did that with Disquiet Gods for a while, but that's okay because I plan to always do it that way, to kind of do books 6 and 7 closely together. And it should be fun, right? Should be fun. I've heard nothing but incredible feedback for Shadows Upon Time, and should be fun. How about this week on the channel, guys? I did talk about those new series that I plan to start in 2026, as I call in permanent ink, meaning that, hell or high water, I'm going to at least start these series. Now, people have called out that there was a couple from last year I didn't get to, and that's kind of why I wanted to make the change this year. I didn't get to Tide Child by R.J. Barker, and I did not get to what is it? The ℙ𝕦𝕤𝕣𝕔𝕙𝕒𝕤𝕒 series, the Shadowland, Lord of the Shadowlands. That's called ℙ𝕦𝕤𝕣𝕒𝕒. I didn't get to either of those this year, and that's when I kind of realized I need to make a change, guys, because I will say I'm going to start 10 to 12 new series each year when I make that video, and doing that back to back to back to back years, I'm getting to the point where I can't continue any series, and I've got this thing where I've got like 60 open series now, and I don't have time to read them because I got to make sure I start these new ones. So this year, I made that video where I said I'm going to start conquering some of these unfinished series or getting current on those, and that way I could leave it open for this video, which was going to be some new series. I still always want to start some new series, but I kind of cut it in half this year. I got like 5 on there, So it's mostly going to be finishing series this year, but there's also going to be a couple of new series. Some of them are lighter, some of them maybe not so much, but there are some that I definitely want to make sure that I focus on finishing first before I kind of start a bunch of new ones. This is the way it's got to be, because I was never, ever going to find time to even get to book 2 or 3 of some of these series if I was just starting a dozen new ones every single year. So that's why I made the change I did. Most people seem to be, receptive to it. There was a lot of other people who haven't either finished some of those series I talked about earlier this year, or they want to kind of get current with me before we start some of these new ones. And I would appreciate having you along the way, because it's always a lot of fun. It sucks because, you want to be part of everything. You want to be part of all the read-alongs. FOMO is very real. You want to get into when everybody else is talking about how great something is. You want to dive right into it. I get that. But with me, it's like I'm starting to get to that point where when I started this channel and I said I started like 9 book ones and I finished maybe half of them, I don't want to do that again. So I want to make sure that I get back to focusing on finishing some of these. So that means taking the permanent ink series and kind of reducing that a little bit while I do try to get caught up on some of these other series I haven't done yet. Also talked about previously my December TBR, my reading plans. I got 4 books, like I said, and I've already started this one, and I've already started this one. So I'm already a couple feet into December already. But then it's 2 massive ones with Shadows Upon Time and Bound of the Broken #4. But it's one of those kind of months where things can go either way. You got some time off work, you got the holidays, but the kids are also home while you're on the holidays, so you can either read a lot or you could read not at all. So we will see what happens. But in the end, if I don't get both of those, look, I'll finish Sun Eater this month. I don't know if I'll be able to finish Empires in Dust this month. We'll see. That's just because that book is 460,000 words, Ryan. You're a maniac. But there's books in the past, and I think about War and Ruin. I read that one relatively quick for as compared to the length. But my wife is finishing up of War and Ruin right now, and the plan is for us to read of Empires in Dust together. So she's got to finish that and read the Ice novella, and then we can both kind of jump into Empires in Dust. I told her, take your time, because I'm sure Sun Eater is going to take me just a little bit, but it's going to be a good time, I do think. Some next week plans, guys. Got some more of my 2026 preview videos coming out. I'll be talking about my most anticipated books of 2026, and it's a strong list. And there's only one of them that I'm not quite sure that's coming out. So 7 of them for sure I know are coming out, and 1 bonus one that is supposedly coming out. You probably don't got to research very hard to know which book I'm talking about. No, it's not Winds of Winter. But there is one that is rumored to be coming out this year, or 2026 this year. I'm already saying this year, and it's not here yet, but it feels like it's right around the corner here, because it is. But I think you can figure out what book that is, probably. Just look behind me. It's not hard to know what series I'm a big fan of, and maybe the last book in that series is coming out. But looking forward to all these books, and some of them are beginning of a new series I just talked about. So there might be some that are on both lists. You never know. We'll see. But that should be fun, as well as wrapping up the month of November. Naming my book of the month. It's a closer race than I thought it was going to be, but we will be talking about that book of the month here for November, as well as looking at all the videos that were hits, the videos that were misses, and just all kinds of stuff that happened in the month of November. When it's a holiday month, it's always kind of wonky on the channel. What goes over well, what does not. How much I was actually able to get done with all the travel and things like that. But it was an exciting month. But it's always fun to reflect upon the previous month, especially one that was as crazy as November was. So some TV and movie talk here before I go. Obviously, guys, I was very excited about the return of Stranger Things And I know right now the really popular, the new hotness is to just rail on Stranger Things because you're mad about how long it took to get made. You don't understand why people like it. It's just 80s member berries, blah, 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 blah. I get it. I understand why people love to hate on it. What I've noticed the most about Stranger Things is it feels like everyone's just expecting for it to Game of Thrones season 8. And I mean, not just people who are hating on it, because they've been like, oh, it's been bad since season 1. Even the people like myself who really enjoyed, most of the first, I mean, like some seasons more than others, but still have enjoyed the whole run of the show, have just kind of been bracing, just waiting for it to Game of Thrones season 8. And I hate that that's a verb now, but it is. It is. But I don't know. I think that these first 4 episodes, I'm not going to spoil anything for you guys. We watched all of them the first night. We didn't want to be spoiled. Me, my wife, and my oldest son watched all 4 of them the night that it came out. We have mostly good things to say about it. In the most non-spoiler way I could talk about it, I do think that I was surprised at some of the characters. And when you got this many characters, it's going to happen. I was surprised that some of the characters that usually get a lot more screen time kind of got reduced a little bit. However, there's been some characters, Will, that I've been like for a couple of seasons now. I've been like, what does this guy do besides hold his neck? He isn't integral. He isn't important to the story anymore. It just seems like if you got to kill off one of the main 4, it might be him. Will finally gets his moment in this season, and it's great. It's really good. I liked it a lot. Vecna looks badass now. They've given him like an upgrade. He looks like Swamp Thing now. It's really kick-ass. My oldest son said he looked like Ultron, but cooler. But it's really cool. It's really, really good build-up for these Fridays. I hate the way they're doing the release schedule too. It just seems like everybody just wants to just bitch and piss and moan about the series, and I get it. I think I don't get about that is people complain when it's a full season drop because they want the anticipation. They want to be able to talk about it each week. But then they complain when they break up the series too. So I don't know. Maybe it's just complain for complaining's sake. Sure, I would complain because I want it all. I want it all right now. I'm always a big fan of the binge watch, especially with something like Stranger Things, because of what we've always done. But I do like that we've got the next month now to kind of speculate about what's going to happen before the next 3 episodes, and of course the finale on New Year's Eve. But I'm happy with it. I'm very happy. I see it has not have any of those red flags so far that the Game of Thrones season 8 had through the first couple of episodes. The only complaint I think I would have is... No, I can't say that. It would be a spoiler. We'll talk about that. Maybe me and my wife will get together on Mike's Meat Reviews and talk spoilers about those first 4 episodes. I don't know. I haven't talked about if we even want to do that yet. But maybe we will to kind of get those thoughts and opinions out there for people who are interested in that. I don't know. We'll talk about it. But I was very happy with it. Yes, the actors look too old for the parts. Outside of that, I think that the show has been very well written. And I've been along with the ride the whole time. I've thought some seasons were better than others. I thought season 4 was the best season since season 1. And the first half of season 5, very, very good. And I'm going to be very, very sad to see it go. But this does feel like the last event television. It feels like the last of those series where everyone is watching at the same time. And if it was as hated as people are acting like it is, I don't think Netflix's server would have had problems the night that it dropped. I didn't have any problems, but there were some people that apparently did have the problems with Netflix's server breaking all at once when it released. But I think they learned their lesson with the Mike Tyson and whatever Paul that fought him. I can't remember what Paul it is that fights. Which one's fighter and which one's the wrestler? I can't ever remember. I can't keep them separated. But anyway, I think they learned their lesson from that because they had an NFL game after that. And there was no problems, So I think they learned their lesson. But again, it just feels like the last one of those where everyone's either going to be watching or hate watching something, to kind of either confirm their bias or say goodbye to something that they've loved for a long time. So yes, I understand everybody's mad about how long it takes. The kids don't look the right ages. I get it. I understand that. Those are valid criticisms. I still think the writing is very, very good. And I'm hoping that they do stick the landing on these final 4 episodes. Because the first 4, very good. It set up something really, really awesome. And I can't wait to see if they do follow through. Last week I was talking about Pluribus. This is the new show on Apple TV by Vince Gilligan. And I talked about this was his long-awaited return to sci-fi. And people have been like, what sci-fi show did he work on? I thought it was just Breaking Bad. I was like, a little show called The X-Files, one of the most important TV shows of all time. Because The X-Files, what it did was it made people that usually would be, kind of standoffish a bit about science fiction television and going all in. It made it very, very popular. So it brought it to the masses. So that's why I say X-Files is one of the most important shows of all time. So talking about it so much because it had so many responses in that video, people saying like they never watched the X-Files. I'm like, you need to get on that right now. I hadn't watched it in a while, so I thought, I'm going to watch a couple of them just for nostalgia's sake. And it's the first time I popped into these Blu-rays, these upgraded, remastered, beautiful Blu-rays for the X-Files. Oh my God, guys, it looks brand new. Now look, obviously it's going to be dated because the technology is hilarious. You know, the Motors busting out phones that are this big, cell phone, and the computer stuff. They're trying to act like it's so cutting edge, and guys, before Windows 95, you know. But the upgrade, just the remaster of these look gorgeous. I'm so used to watching X-Files on my old DVDs and kind of squinting to see everything, you know, because it's so blurry, or watching it on syndicated television. It just looks terrible. And seeing this, like, wow, this looks incredible. So they really, really put some work into these remasters. They're really, really good. And now I'm glad I got those Blu-rays when I did, because I looked recently. They're outrageously expensive now. So I'm glad I got them when they were brand new. But guys, if you haven't dove into the X-Files at this point, do it. I'm rewatching. I kind of made a little spreadsheet. Now look, I was obsessed with this show when I was a teenager. This show was everything. This is back when I thought that the government was competent enough to really keep secrets from us. So I was all in on, oh yeah, they know all about aliens and they're keeping it from us. I was one of the lone gunmen back then. I really, really was. So I remember the show inside and out. I never missed an episode. I never stopped debating. I was hitting the old bulletin board systems out there and talking about the X-Files every week. So I went through and I said, if I do an X-Files rewatch, and I just wanted to kind of follow the myth arc. That's, you know, the ones that connect the conspiracy together. And my favorite Monster of the Week episodes, what would I do? And I kind of went through a wiki and kind of remembered every episode and made a little spreadsheet of the ones that if I'm going to do a full rewatch, this is what I will do. So I'm about halfway through season 2 right now, just doing it that way, just watching the best Monster of the Week episodes and all of the myth arc episodes. And that's fun. Give Survivor a break for a little bit, because I've been kind of rushing through Survivor. But this is kind of like my, you know, I'm doing chores, or, you know, I'm doing data entry from working from home and stuff like that. I can have something on. You don't have to pay 100% attention to it. But I find myself stopping and staring at the screen a lot because, well, one, Gillian Anderson, and two, because X-Files, it's an amazing show. And with this new remastered version, I just love the lighting on this show. It was like the only show at the time that wasn't afraid to make everything kind of dark and almost like Hitchcock-like. Such a beautiful show, man. And this upgrade, it's just awesome. And again, one of the best shows of all time. And if you haven't ever seen it before, you don't mind the technology being a little behind the times, I think it has aged incredibly well. So check it out. So maybe you're one of those people who watch like Supernatural or something and you miss it and you want something a little more serious but just as much fun and enjoyable Monster of the Week kind of content. I think X-Files will be great for you. So check it out as we hope to get caught up with Pluribus sometime this week. We had a Fire Stick problem. We couldn't get on Apple TV for a little bit, so we still only watched the pilot, but we do want to keep going with it. And with a show like that, hey, you know what? I don't mind if the episodes pile up, because if it's anything like that first episode, I'm pretty sure it's going to be something that we want to binge. But guys, that was my week, a little expanded edition of the weekly update here, since I only did one for 2 weeks because we were traveling. So this is kind of the catch-up one. But hey, I would love to know what you guys are up to. You had a great holiday, what you're watching, what you're reading, what you're listening to, what you're playing. Did you get too much to eat? Did you get enough football? Is there such a thing? Drop in the comments, guys, and let me know, and I will talk to you there.